Hello, and welcome back to What We Pod in the Shadows, where we're currently discussing Season 3 of What We Do in the Shadows. I'm Raven.
And I'm Alison.
So last time we tried to record this episode, we had some technical difficulties with the recording. We're not totally 100% sure what caused it, but it just sounded weird in a lot of places and just kind of made it hard to listen to and tell exactly what was going on and what we were talking about. So we're re-recording it and hopefully it will be totally fine, and yeah, hopefully everything will be coherent and intelligible this time and all that jazz. So the episode we will be talking about is, if I didn't say this already, the Cloak of Duplication. But before we get into discussing the episode, it would be super cool if you guys could hit all those buttons for us, depending on where you're listening. Comment, review, like, subscribe, follow, etc. It would be super helpful if we got more reviews and follows, because it would help push us out there to more folks who might enjoy listening to the pod.
And we also have another podcast called Mojo Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, and we're currently discussing Season 3 of the Powerpuff Girls, but we also discuss JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. We're alternating between seasons, so you can check us out there also.
Yeah, we have a much larger back catalog of episodes of that too. So if you want to hear us talk about another series, and sometimes we talk about vampires on there too, then that is a good place to find us.
Okay, so the Cloak of Duplication. Nandor and Nadja have decided to share power of the Vampiric Council, but each hopes to be the supreme leader. Many making a number 2 jokes ensue. The guide gives them a tour of the facility, complete with a break room of snacks of hanging bodies. She shows them the Chamber of Curiosities, which contains valuable collections of vampires from over centuries, including Van Helsing's penis. The sire is contained behind a chained door. So he's kind of like the father of all the vampires. They all came from him. Nandor finds the Cloak of Duplication, and the guide puts it on and looks just like Nandor. The guide tells them not to be touching the objects or the cloak. She shuts Guillermo into a familiar room, even though he is now technically the bodyguard. And he was super against being locked up, because it doesn't really make sense for him to be able to watch them.
Yeah. There is also a gigantic library which Colin and Laszlo explore together. Laszlo is just excited to look through their ancient collection of porn, but Colin decides he wants to do some research on the origins of energy vampires as he nears his 100th birthday. He seems not to know how energy vampires are made or born, but is feeling himself in a reflective mood with his birthday coming up. Even though Guillermo is locked in the Familiar's room, he finds a giant vent on the wall and climbs through it. The guide gets Nadja and Nandor fitted for their official council vestments, and Guillermo yells through the vent about Nandor's inseam size, and everyone basically tells him to shoo and get out of the vent. Nandor then sneaks off to use the Cloak of Duplication because he thinks it will help him with his romantic difficulties. He has a crush on a receptionist named Meg who works at a 24-hour gym. He likes to work out there shirtless and notes that it is very different than working out with his army. He says Meg is very kind to him, but he has trouble talking to modern women and wants to use the cloak to get Laszlo to pretend to be him and charm her into being his girlfriend. Laszlo agrees at first, but then gives the cloak to Colin and says Nandor actually wants him to charm Meg. Laszlo says he'd do it himself, but he can't be bothered.
I don't totally get it. It seems like something that would be up Laszlo's alley why he didn't just do it.
Yeah, I didn't get that either.
In the first place.
Be a wingman for your friend, please.
I had noted that I think Colin quoted Lady Gaga's Born This Way when he was kind of talking about figuring out his lineage. And then he's pretty horrified, like Laszlo was just ripping pages out of books. I don't know if it was parts of the pornography that he wanted to keep.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Or what. Okay, so Colin puts the cloak on and looks like Nandor and goes to the massive fitness gym. He wants to use negging on Meg. He calls her dipshit and says she used to be hot. She grabs some muscular security. Colin comes back and tells Laszlo she clearly isn't into dudes, so Laszlo says he'll give it a go. Nadja summons Colin to help with a vampire group in Queens who hasn't paid their dues. So Colin's just supposed to be there, like, writing down everything that happens, like the secretary, I guess. Nadja wants them to bend the knee, but Nandor says it's just a courtesy call. Laszlo tries to woo Meg and convinces her he took Clonopin earlier because he was nervous, and that's why he was saying all that stuff, the negging stuff. He sings her a song and mentions she had a high, firm ass. But then he tries to show her some of the pornography he found, and he is thrown out of the gym as well.
Unlike Colin, he does hypnotize Meg to forget as he leaves, though, so next person isn't going to have those same troubles. In Queens, a vampire named Wes has decided to start his own vampiric council with his friends. Nadja demands that he bend the knee, but he is not interested. An energy vampire named Dave Lewis is part of Wes's coven and is a big fan of Colin, so they start talking shop about boring people. Guillermo falls out of the vents into the library, where Laszlo convinces him to put on the cloak and talk to Meg for Nandor. Dave apparently bores people by talking about weed paraphernalia and sneakers. Colin asks if he's ever thought about where energy vampires come from, and Dave says he hasn't. Meanwhile, Nandor and Nadja argue with the rogue vampires in order to get them to bend the knee to their official council, but Wes says the rules and ceremonies are ridiculous and they don't seem qualified to run anything. Wes has a master's degree in urban planning and seems to think that makes him more qualified than they are. Nandor seems to agree with that sentiment. Guillermo, as Nandor, has a conversation with Meg, where he mostly gushes about himself as a friend, but also says how Nandor takes him for granted. Meg thinks because of the way Guillermo talks about his supposed colleague that Nandor has a thing for Guillermo and says he should try to talk to him outside of work. Guillermo gets embarrassed and leaves.
So I did like Guillermo was kind of geeking out to be in Nandor's body, but then I think he tried to turn into a bat and it didn't work. So he doesn't actually have Nandor's powers. Nandor convinces Nadja to leave because they're outnumbered, and as he's bidding adieu to Wes, Nadja rips Wes's heart out. The rest of the group kneels, and she tells them when the dues are due, and they quickly agree. Nandor himself goes to visit Meg and the gym because he feels confident as he thinks Laszlo has buttered her up. She seems happy to see him and brings up Guillermo. He confesses his attraction and she says she is a lesbian. He hypnotizes her and gym security sees him. So Nandor throws him into a wall.
Nadja lectures Nandor about going soft. He slams his coffin shut in her face, but she uses the Cloak of Duplication to turn into him and screams at him and makes fun of him. And then we have the after credits scene where we see the sire banging on the door where he's kept locked up, and he knocks open a little window thingy, where maybe they might bring him in his food. Dun dun dun.
I don't know if you said this, but not just going at him, and Nandor says he's been going through some things and wondering if there's more to life. And I think he's kind of wanting because Nadja and Laszlo are married, but he is single.
He's lonely and stuff.
I mean, he could have friends.
Yeah.
I mean, they are kind of a group of friends, but then they're kind of mean to each other a lot, though, too.
Yes, they very much are. They're always picking at each other and shit.
I noted Nadja came from a family of 17, or maybe she even said she was the only one that survived out of 17.
I think she did say that, yes.
So, I don't know, the building the Vampiric Council is in, it was pretty cool. The collection of curiosities the Chamber of Curiosities was pretty neat. Them not touching stuff is probably her wasting her breath because it's they just don't listen. And, I mean, I didn't totally get how the Cloak of Duplication worked because it just seemed like it was stuck on replicating Nandor.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's just because that's what the guide wanted to do, and if there's something that you have to do to change it to something else. I mean, I know all of the other ones, that's what they were supposed to be doing with it, was pretending to be Nandor, but
Right.
it might have been fun to see them do other things with it than trying to woo Meg.
Yeah, get up to like some other silly shenanigans.
I don't know if they ever use this cloak again or not. And then I'm sure they introduced the sire because we're gonna meet the sire.
Yeah. I feel like the end credit scene basically confirmed that. Because otherwise they might have just been like, this is where the sire is, and they never brought it up again.
Yeah, but I mean, they didn't have to. I mean, like, they are the Vampiric Council, but it just seems like it's for America or the tri-state area or something. So
Yeah.
that the sire is there. I mean, like, he might have been over in Europe or something, or like
Yeah.
South America or Africa or something. So I wouldn't have assumed that they had the sire.
Right.
I don't know if Cullen ever really finds out where energy vampires come from or where he came from. He did talk about his. I'm not sure the guide should have just left them in the Chamber of Curiosities or like have access to that library.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust them with any like important artifacts or dangerous items or anything like that. I think I've said before, Guillermo's pretty much the only one of them that's like consistently competent.
Yeah, but he makes mistakes too.
Yeah. I think you said like earlier in the show that you didn't really know where like the whole like shipping like Nandor and Guillermo thing came from, but I feel like it's really started in this episode with like with Guillermo pretending to be Nandor and just like basically just like totally just like gushing about himself to Meg.
I mean, I get that Guillermo might have a crush on Nandor. I'm not sure if it goes the other way.
Yeah, it might be a little one-sided, yeah.
Because, I mean, Nandor usually just goes after women. Laszlo seems to swing both ways, but
Yeah.
I'm just almost wondering, I mean, does he have a crush on Nandor or does he just sort of kind of want to be Nandor and he wishes Nandor treated him better also, though, is kind of what I saw as well. Like,
yeah.
Because he wanted to be like an interview with the vampire, like,
Armand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's a bit of both of like admiration and having a crush on him. Though I don't think Guillermo's like probably ready to like admit that to himself, especially when he like freaked out and left.
Like the other group that they went and visited, they seem like a bunch of young vampires, so I kind of understand them not wanting to be, I guess, under the rule of anyone, really, and then to accept the council's authority. And, like, this group has been largely incompetent. Like, really, the only reason why they're in power is because they killed a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what sort of services like that they really do provide as council other than kind of like, well, we heard you did this thing and it's against the rules, but
yeah. It's sort of the Vampire Council is a little like mafia like, I guess, with wanting the dues, like sort of like their protection money or
But I mean protecting them from what? And then they didn't even get to like even vote on the council. They're just supposed to accept these people.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, just thinking about it, she killed Wes. But that's what they were in trouble for previously, and what, we've seen other people be in trouble for. I don't know if they discussed that with the guide or the dude that appointed them.
Yeah.
As the council, but can they just do that?
Maybe since they're on the council now, they can basically do whatever the hell they want.
I mean, I don't think that from what I can remember that they get in trouble for it, but
yeah.
And I don't know why Nandor's like didn't think he could have just asked Meg out himself.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
She seemed to kind of like him well enough.
Yeah.
But I mean, she was just like doing her job, so she's probably nice to everyone. But I think if just like at the end there where he was like trying to then ask her out, she probably would have told him that she was a lesbian and we wouldn't have to go through this whole,
Yeah.
which I get, like, it's fun to watch them kind of pretend to be each other and all that. I understand that, but like I think there's a charm to Nandor. Like she liked his accent. He's, I guess, fairly attractive because it seemed like when each of them were in the body, his body, that they, especially like Colin and Guillermo, that they kind of were like had confidence as him.
Yeah.
Because I think Colin said something about this body.
Yeah, and he's pretty like tall too. I feel like he's a bit taller than Colin and Laszlo.
So I mean, if he just played it up, kind of like being a foreigner and not knowing some things because of that, instead of like, well, I'm from the, I don't know modern stuff. That he probably could have dated a modern woman just fine.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it wasn't meant to be because Meg isn't interested in men, but yes. I don't know what we talked about the first time.
That's the only thing I can think of that we talked about the first time is that I had thought maybe Naja was going to kill the whole group of them, and I didn't want her to kill Dave because he was such a fan of Colin. I was like,
yeah, that was kind of cute too. Him kind of geeking out about meeting Colin.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was because of their reputation of like supposedly killing everybody at that theater show.
Yeah.
Or where he had heard of Colin, but yeah, them two kind of got along. It might have been neat if they had stayed in touch. I don't know if we see the rest of this group ever again.
I honestly don't remember.
He should stay in touch with, because when they went to the theater, Colin had seen another energy vampire and he was kind of geeking out. So maybe he needs to make like a energy vampire database and they can, because it's like with his group of vampires, a lot of times they don't listen to him because they think whatever he's saying is to drain their energy. So, I mean, I know that the energy vampires do kind of even do it to each other, but like just where they can kind of complain to each other or whatever.
Yeah.
Not for the purpose of draining energy, and like maybe they can listen to each other, but.
Indeed. So I think we're going to end things here. Thank you so much for listening. Just again, if you could leave us a review or follow or subscribe or what have you, if you haven't already, please do that. It would be super helpful for the pod to get out there to more folks.
Smash all those buttons for us. And the next episode we would be covering is episode 3 called Gale. So you might want to check that out before listening to the next episode.
Yeah, you don't want us to spoil everything for you. So until next time, remember, you're dead and out of this world. Goodbye.
Goodbye.